For more insights on the meeting and the Ukrainian situation, I spoke to Anders Aslund, Senior Fellow with the Peterson Institute for International Economics, and I asked him about his take on the meeting.
Well, it seems to have been just a matter of Putin trying to humiliate both the European Union and Ukraine as much as possible.
Putin, for our audience, basically doesn't want Ukraine to pivot to the EU. They are saying, they as in Putin is saying, that it will cost 165 billion euros over the next 10 years. I mean, obviously this is saying, look, if you go that direction, either we're going to punish you or you're going to be punished. Response from Ukraine, well, what can they really do?
Well, the obvious answer is you will punish us in any case. So we had better.
They're going to get punished anyways.
Yeah. So Poland, which is a slightly smaller country than Ukraine, has now 3 times larger GDP than Ukraine. And 25 years ago, they were at the same level. So to the Ukrainians, the answer is obvious. One can't deal with Russia.
One of the points of discussion was the canceling of the duty-free relationship with Ukraine. Explain to us why this is important.
Well, there is a free trade agreement among all the former Soviet countries in place since 2011. And originally from '94, and this means that it's a real free trade for what is allowed to trade. And now instead, Russia will apply a 10% import tariff on what it imports from Ukraine. But since it's had halved the import from Ukraine in any case, and is likely to reduce it further, it doesn't mean all that much.
I have to ask you about the elephant in the room. I mean, part of the strategy from the West and Ukraine has been to put these sanctions on Russia. The first round of sanctions, the second round of sanctions from the US, from the EU. And the whole point was to apply pressure so that Russia would essentially step back and loosen sort of its stance. Is it fair to say that that hasn't worked at all?
Well, economic sanctions are supposed to take time. They are normally ratcheted up. What I think we should expect after this humiliating meeting is that the West will raise the sanctions as they hadn't expected before. And the Russian economy is likely to stagnate this year, and it's not likely to grow anytime soon.
Okay, but I can see that the CEOs in Russia, the strong business people, they obviously are seeing what's happening to their business and the economy. Does that apply any pressure at all to President Putin? I mean, does he take that into consideration, and if so, how much?
Well, the private sector is totally out of decision-making in Russia today, apart from a handful of crony businessmen close to Putin, and what they say in private. They can't be happy with Putin. We can't know. But President Putin is very much like this, that he discusses special issues with each person, and he doesn't discuss general issues with hardly anybody. So he's isolating himself ever more from the outside world and from his public appearances. For example, the claims how much this would cost Ukraine. He clearly doesn't have any good understanding of reality.
I mean, look, the takeaway for me from this discussion is you're not real positive on the future relationship, and you've alluded to the fact that there's going to be possibly more sanctions or tougher sanctions and something more. Walk us through, when you say more or worse, what are you specifically talking about? What are you suggesting?
Well, essentially, there are 3 kinds of sanctions that are being discussed. One is financial sanctions. I think that we will see much more of that. Another is technology sanctions, as during the Cold War. I think that we will see gradually more of that. And the third is energy sanctions. I don't think we will see anything of that because the West needs the energy from Russia. So mainly it is financial sanctions, and then also more support of various kinds to Ukraine. Here in Washington, it's a big issue what military support the US can give to Ukraine. That means now military non-lethal supplies, but lethal supplies, that is arms, are seriously discussed now.
Thank you, Anders Aslund, Senior Fellow with the Peterson Institute for International Economics.